Hi guys, so welcome to my channel, and today I will talk about Cambridge interviews. So part one of these videos would be about interviews themselves as an assessment and my advice on them and what I've gone through, and part two is more about the logistics of how to sort of organize for your interview and what you should or should not do before and after your interviews, as well as the polling system. So, although I'm not an expert at interviews, I can tell you that it's okay to be nervous, because everyone's nervous, and it just shows how much you really want to study your subject, how passionate you are. So it's really normal, and everyone feels nervous for the interview. So everyone's in the same boat, so there's no need to be worried. And I just want to say that interviews were put in place so that admissions tutors would be able to assess your application more clearly and just understand you a bit more, or from the existing information that you've already provided for them. So it just adds to your other parts of your application, such as your personal statement or your supplementary questionnaire thing. And interviewers are not there to make you feel uncomfortable, but rather to challenge you academically and see how you respond to new knowledge and learning new things, and just they assess your ability to sort of derive and build on existing knowledge. So unlike what you really read online, you will hardly ever get a really weird interview where like someone throws a brick at you, or if you're applying to Russian and then they give you an Arabic text. Like, I've never met anyone who's had an interview like that. So I think they're just myths that people make up on the internet that aren't really necessarily true, because none of my friends have had weird interviews. Like, some of the questions might be a bit challenging, but or seem a bit weird to start with, but they're not really sort of shocking or sort of out of the blue, that kind of thing. So usually for most colleges, or at least at Magdalen, you would be invited to attend two interviews. So a subject interview and an academic interview. So the subject interview is dealing more specifically with your subject and specific elements of your subject. So they'll be going over subjects that you would have supposedly covered in school exams or at school in general, and that's because in your application you would have been asked to provide the modules that you've gone through in class, and that's what I did. Or you would list all the modules that you would have done up to December and basically tell the interviewers what you would have done. So this allows the interviewers to have enough time to prepare interview questions based on your existing knowledge, and just to challenge you by introducing stuff that you don't know. So they want to know what you don't know so that they could sort of ask you about it or give you something you haven't seen before and see how well you take it. So there's not really a need to read everything, and it's good to have interest in your subject and sort of do some outside reading, but it's not really necessary to be like, oh, I don't know this part of my subject, so maybe I should cram in 10 books on that just to learn about it. No, they don't expect you to do that, but rather just have keen interest in something that they'd probably like you to read, but then learn from it, and they want to know your opinion on something, or how do you feel about after reading this book. So then next interview, general interview, is usually with your DOS, so with your Director of Studies, and it would include some form of assessment that was chosen by your DOS themselves. So this might be just talking about your personal statement, your subject, motivation, or even like your future career, or like anything, or that's more towards subjects that do have a clear career path. So for say like architecture, for example, there's not many things. Well, there are a lot of things that can come out of architecture, but most people would go through the degree just because they want to be architects. So they want to
make sure that you're really motivated and really passionate about your subject, so that like when you go into the course it doesn't hit you in the face and then it's not something you didn't expect. So the general interview for architecture applicants it's mainly going through your portfolio and talking through what you have done and the design process. So explaining some of your artwork and basically showing what you have done in the past 2 or more years. It's okay to include like pre so like GCSE level work, and just to sort of include it, that's okay. I included my IGCSE art stuff, but it's also okay if you don't want to, or if you want to add something in or leave out something. But it's good to show that you have good things and bad things. So sometimes you can just show that this didn't work out because of this and what I've learned from it, and that's also good, just to show them that you don't things don't always go well. So everyone's human, so they'll understand it really well, and they'll understand you more if you talk through failure and how you adapt to it, because I'm very, very sure that in an architecture degree you're bound to make mistakes, and that's really okay. But it's okay to make mistakes, and we just need to learn and move on. So that's my advice on that. And at the end of this interview, you'd have the opportunity to ask any questions regarding the course. So it's okay if you don't have any questions. Like me, I didn't ask any questions at this point. I was just like, no, I don't have any questions. And it's not a trick question, so if you have any questions regarding your course or something you didn't understand, just ask. Don't be scared. But if you don't have anything, that's also absolutely fine. And I just want to say that it's absolutely okay to tell an interviewer that you didn't understand, like you haven't understood the question. Ask them to repeat it. It's okay. Like ask them to clarify it, or there's this part you don't understand. And if you're nervous or you didn't hear the whole question, it won't affect your application in any way, and it's better to sort of clarify your question before you answer it if you're really unclear about it, instead of making up a response that would basically be really bad and you wouldn't know what you're saying, and that would just be worse, because none of you will be getting anything out of the question if you didn't understand it. So it's better to just understand it and tell them you haven't heard them properly, or could you please repeat, just beg your pardon. Be really nice about it, and interviews don't mind, so just do that. And to say that the general interview, most people think it's not subject oriented, but in fact I think it's very much still based on your subject that you're applying to read. So just bear that in mind during your interview, and know that you'll be asked sort of questions on that as well. And one last thing is to remember that you've done everything that you've said you've done in your personal statement. So you've read every book you said you read. Just have done everything that you've said you've done. If by any chance you haven't done it when you were writing your personal statement, so you're like, oh, I was gonna read this book but I ran out of time, so make sure you do that. And so this year they are introducing university-wide interview assessments, or pre-interview assessments, which are basically tests that admissions tutors use across the university to sort of evaluate the standard of applicants and ensure a more sort of equal pooling system, I would assume. So personally, I haven't done these assessments myself because I was the last year that you didn't have to do these. But I'm sure there's sort of online samples that you can check out and sort of understand the format of the test and see how they work. And I think they're an hour long, so they're alright, and just maybe prepare for them or just see how it goes, and don't be nervous, and it's okay if you mess up, or it's only because the interviews are only one tiny part of your
application. So if you not a tiny part, but so only one element of the whole thing. So even if you don't do well in the interview, like I've met people who, or like admission tutors who told me that this girl fainted during the interview and they still accepted them. So it's absolutely okay, and just try your best, give it your all, and give it a shot, and see what happens. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in part 2 of this video, where we'll talk about more about the before and afters of an interview, the logistics, the interview process, and the sort of polling system. So thanks for watching, and see you later.